This video is sponsored by Ren. Learn more details about that later in the video.
Many others agreed that Franco should not be allowed to appropriate a brutal dictator from Latinos. He may be a mass-murdering psychopath, but he's their mass-murdering psychopath. It didn't matter that Franco actually looks a lot like Fidel Castro. It also didn't matter that Franco and Castro are...
Oh my God, he's gonna do the whole, this was a real human being, this was a real actual historical figure, and the other example is a mermaid that lives under the sea. Under the sea. Down the sweatshirt.
Here's the story. Matt Walsh says on his show, I don't care if anyone of any race is playing any character. It's basically how it was in the 90s, and that's totally fine. I just don't like the double standard. And for that matter, he's like, can we talk about the science of a mermaid? Like underwater, it wouldn't make sense to have dark skin because the sea creatures down there have no pigmentation. So not only would she be very pale, she'd be translucent, like some kind of horrifying floating skeleton. It was a joke. It was nonsense. Obviously, the Little Mermaid isn't a floating skeleton. The next thing that happens is they say Matt Walsh makes racist claim about Little Mermaid. They omit stuff. Then you get David French being like, here's Matt Walsh's argument for why Ariel should be white, which he never said. What? Now the story has become his weird scientific objection to a black Little Mermaid when his whole point was he's okay with actors of any race playing any character. They have laundered the story to that degree. This is the media now. CNN. Lisa France calls out.
Can we see that? I just want to see if Tim's being accurate.
So the left and the media are enraged today because of my allegedly racist mermaid opinions. Now, this is a very, very important issue to them. Will I finally fall to my knees and apologize? You'll have to stay tuned to find out. Also, 2 videos. In my response, I asserted that scientifically, it makes no sense for Ariel to have dark skin. In fact, I suggested that she ought to be translucent and skeletal and horrifying like a real deep-sea fish. Our loyal fans over at Media Matters heard those remarks, as they hear literally everything else I say because they're obsessed with me and want to date me. And they immediately posted it to Twitter and published an article on their site with the headline, Daily Wire host says it is unscientific to cast a black person as a mermaid. Other left-wing blogs picked it up, like the site Alternet, which reports, and I'll read a little bit of their report because I think it fairly captures what actually happened. Quote, right-wing Daily Wire podcaster Matt Walsh threw a fit on Wednesday over the new live-action remake of the classic Disney film The Little Mermaid because the main character Ariel is portrayed by actress Halle Bailey, who is black. Matt said that while he is sympathetic to the more...
You wouldn't like how I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I watch YouTube videos sometimes 1/7, or I'll go for the full 2. If I'm
racial inclusion in fictional works. He opposes Bailey's casting because of marine biology. Quoting me now, quote, also, by the way, with The Little Mermaid, can we also just mention that from a scientific perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have someone with darker skin who lives deep in the ocean, Walsh complained. I mean, if anything, not only should the Little Mermaid be pale, she should actually be translucent, he continued. If you look at deep-sea creatures, they're like translucent. They have no pigmentation whatsoever, and they're just these horrifying, they look like skeletons floating around in the oceon. That's what the Little Mermaid should look like. She should be totally pale and skeletal.
Hey, remember when he told people to attack a kid's hospital and then someone called in a bomb threat? 2 bomb threats from their home phone, and they got arrested in less than 2 weeks, and it was revealed that she's a conservative Trump supporter. I remember that. Yeah, do you remember when he actually tried to say, hey, by the way, this could be a false flag, or when he tried to say, why don't I get any, apologies from the left for the fact that this was just a threat, there wasn't a literal bomb, and I was like, you fucking monster.
Where you can see her skull through her face. Walsh noted, adding that this would be a version of The Little Mermaid that I would watch. Now, that is indeed an accurate and full quote, which I do appreciate. Media Matters on Twitter provided the full video, but they were more selective in their caption. So Jason Campbell tweeted the video, but the caption was just, Daily Wire host says it's unscientific to cast a black person as a mermaid. Now, which again is what I said, but then didn't go further with the rest of it. From there, it was sort of off to the races. My statements calling for a translucent mermaid were picked up.
You know why Matt Walsh sucks so much? Is he's constantly doing the trolling. He's basically like a low-tier 4chan poster who got a massive online show, but it's always that kind of like, well, what I'm doing here is I'm gonna, do something I know will trigger the libs, trigger the left, and then I can be like, stupid. It's just me being silly.
Up by other media outlets like Newsweek. They had a headline about it. It even went all the way across the world. The Sydney Morning Herald in Australia was reporting on it. Reporters started emailing me asking for comment on the issue, which I was more than happy to provide, by the way. Leftists across the nation expressed their outrage. I was one of the top trending topics on Twitter all night and still today because of this. My allegedly racist, translucent, supremacist views ignited a national firestorm. Now, just reading through a few of these angry tweets, just for fun. One says, wait. First, these fools want to say that science doesn't matter when it comes to vaccines and the like, but then want to be science guardians about fictional creatures? Josh Marshall at the Talking Points memo tweet.
He's so unbearable. Like, you know what's neat? I was listening to Robert Evans' old Robert Evans podcast about platforming and censorship, because I was trying to do some research for the Vanguard debate, and he was talking about how Glenn Beck, in the era of Glenn Beck, I don't think people recognize that and his popularity and rise in that period was a definitive pushback against Barack Obama. And so much of that pushback against Barack Obama was deeply rooted in racism, but they weren't allowed to say that outright, obviously, because they weren't going to just bring up the fact that they were hating Barack Obama specifically because he was black, but the fact that he was capable of being elected really broke a lot of people's brains. And then there was this thing where liberals were mocking and making fun of the right and right-wingers and openly laughing at them for a variety of reasons. And that's where this big pushback to, quote, need the lib-tiers starts growing, where you want to start having conservative owns, right? You want to see your Ben Shapiro's, your Jordan Petersons, all these people going to college campuses and destroying the SJWs, wrecking them, getting all those fucking purple-haired tiers, extracting it all, fucking all these woke liberal campuses, destroying that shit, and it continues to grow and accelerate. And now it's become like a hallmark of all this, is that they have to either be a combination of hiding, alt-right 4chan style, hiding their power levels, making sure they signal just enough so everyone knows what they're talking about. They know what they mean when they say the elites kind of stuff, but at the same time combining that with, hey, we're trolling them. Look at this. Here comes Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh writes this fucking super transphobic kids book and then gets it to chart on Amazon in the LGBTQ section. That is just like, that is fucking, to them, absolute and complete fucking fashy candy, like fashy crack cocaine, whatever you want to call it. Like all of a sudden they're just like, oh, this is fucking awesome, look at Matt trolling them. Then he's gonna be like, I'm gonna be basically the far right Sacha Baron Cohen. Yeah, because I'm definitely as talented and skilled as Sacha Baron Cohen. So I'm going to be able to do basically like a Borat, but instead it's transphobic. So kind of like the transphobic Borat. So give me a bunch of monies and then I'll go do that. And then he makes What Is a Woman? But you can tell Matt Walsh, he's just like, he's not charismatic. He's not smart. He's not clever. He's nothing that really makes Sacha Baron Cohen Sacha Baron Cohen. Instead, he's just a bigot. So it doesn't work out as well. He's sitting down for interviews. He either has to edit them to try and make them seem as if they're like, oh, boring fucking academic speak, or he just gets owned. It's just a whole bunch of owns, and he just sits there being like, but why can't you answer? Why won't you answer? What is a woman? Well, I just did. I actually gave you a whole bunch of answers. It's hard to know because you edited them and then faded them in and out from each other, because it's actually a more complicated question that just warrants the whole, like, do you want to hear adult human female? Do you want me to say that out loud to you, Matt? Would that please you, right? Do you want me to say vagina? Would that please you, Matt? Would you enjoy that? Is that the answer you're looking for? He also, by the way, he got caught as he was making that transphobic hit piece along the way by the trans community. They figured him out so fast. They're so smart. They have so much solidarity. They're very, very handy at using computers and stuff like that. And immediately they're just putting it on blast. Hey, by the way, if this production company or this person says they are actually trying to do a documentary on trans issues, this is a transphobic asshole named Matt Walsh. He's trying to do a whole hit piece. You don't have to do it, that kind of stuff. He's so
I shouldn't laugh because the
worst
racism
faith.
isn't funny, but they struggle to present their racism as scientific. Have you ever even met a fish? He actually wrote that. Have you met any fish? They don't look like people. With a few exceptions, they're not white. What an effing clown. Another tweet says, quite possibly the strangest thing about self-described theocratic fascist Matt Walsh's argument for why science...
By the way, it should be noted, like, he thinks he's just a fucking good, wholesome old boy, standing up for traditional values, this Christian fucking fascist. It should also be added how dangerous he is. Like, what happened at Children's Hospital, that is fucking stochastic terrorism. Like, I don't think applying the label of a stochastic terrorist to Matt Walsh is beyond the pale. I think he is 100% doing extreme and dangerous acts and trying to weaponize his audience, but also have complete and utter plausible deniability, just to be able to be like, wait, was it me or was it Libs of TikTok? You fucking lefties can't get it straight. Oh, was it Haya or was it me? Who was it? Was it Christopher Rufo? Because he was actually a big person talking about it too. So which one is it? Andy No was making a bunch of tweets about it as well. We were all spreading the so-called lie around. So who was it? Who are you gonna blame? I mean, if Lauren Southern retweeted one of us, was it her? Was it that white supremacist? Who's really to blame here? Who gets it? Yeah, you can't choose, can you, lefties?
Typically a mermaid couldn't be black is the fact that it's just wrong. He's confusing tanning changing someone's skin tone to the amount of melanin in someone's skin. Another one says, attention, Matt Walsh, F your scientific perspective. Mermaids aren't real. Just say you're a racist and take up significantly less airtime. Bye. And then there's this.
So I've never heard Matt Walsh say that he hates the double standard. The part that maybe we have to watch, like, I don't really want to watch too much more Matt Walsh, but maybe we need to see the original. Hey, I just want to interrupt what we're doing right now to talk about something that is actually kind of concerning. Climate change. It's real. Who'da thunk it? And while it's happening, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of reporting on in the news in relation to it, such as, I don't know, China going through the biggest drought in its history, and Pakistan, 1/3 of the country now being underwater. Seems like something the mainstream media isn't very focused on. And we always have this debate. How much of this is my own fault versus how much of this happens to these 100 companies that produce 70% of the carbon footprint? However, these companies do produce the energy that we consume, so how much of it is consumer demand versus how much do we use? It's a whole thing. Now, I don't think that we should each personally feel 100% responsible for climate change, although there are little things that we can do in our everyday lives to improve the planet. So activities such as eating less red meat, for example, is one thing. If you ever want to know how much carbon footprint you actually commit, like in CO2 output and all that, there's a really neat app called Ren. So what Ren does is it actually calculates based on a few handful of questions what your carbon footprint is, and then shows you ways that you can offset it, such as planting trees or supporting companies that do plant trees. And the company is 100% publicly funded, on top of which the first 100 people who sign up with this will get 10 trees planted automatically just by signing up for the site. So you can sign up for the site, check out your carbon footprint, and just by doing that, you will plant some trees. Pretty neat, pretty cool. We're excited to be partnering with them on this promo. So please go download the app, Ren. And again, the first 100 people do, you get to plant some trees and feel a little bit good about yourself. It's changing casting in Disney movies.
Back in August, it was announced that the actor James Franco had been cast to play Fidel Castro in an upcoming film. As Axios reported at the time, the casting decision sparked anger. Many on the left accused Franco of participating in whitewashing. The Washington Post ran an article claiming that the incident highlights the alleged ongoing problem of Latino exclusion in Hollywood. Fellow actor John Leguizamo blasted the casting as appropriation, called for a boycott. Many others agreed that Franco should not be allowed to appropriate a brutal dictator from Latinos. He may be a mass-murdering psychopath, but he's their mass-murdering psychopath, damn it. It didn't matter that Franco actually looks a lot like Fidel Castro. It also didn't matter that Franco and Castro are...
Oh my God, he's gonna do the whole, this was a real human being, this was a real actual historical figure, and the other examples of Mermaid that lives under the sea, down where it's wetter. Things
not that far apart ethnically.
Sea.
Castro's father was from Spain, while Franco's grandfather is from Portugal. It also, of course, didn't matter that the job of an actor is to act, that is, to pretend to be something that you are not. None of that matters in such cases. All that matters is that Franco is white, and white people must stay in their acting lane. Now, by the way, John Leguizamo was born in Colombia, but his first prominent role in Hollywood was portraying the Nintendo character Luigi, who is an Italian...
It's not real! Luigi's a video game character. That's a bunch of pixels. I don't care if a black person played Luigi. I like it. Doesn't like okay. What?
Italian plumber, according to the Nintendo canon. That doesn't matter either, though, as we'll cover in a moment. Now, over the years, there have been many outrages and controversies stemming from instances of alleged whitewashing.
You know what? If we're applying the rule, the Italianness is something that is critical to Luigi. So maybe this is the first time Italians, you may have your rights here, okay? We're going to stand up for the rights of Italians for the first time ever on the show. It may be a strange thing for a non-Italian to embody this fictional Italian character who's not real and does not exist. But there you go, all right? Mamma mia. So yeah. Canonically, in the original Disney cartoon series, The Little Mermaid, there were non-white mermaids. So yes, they 100%, even in the fictional world of The Little Mermaid, can exist. There is such things.
In 2017, a British actor was forced to drop out of a Hellboy film because the character he was supposed to play was Japanese in the original comic. A few years before that, Emma Stone's casting as an Asian woman in a romantic comedy provoked so much wrath from the left that the director of the film had to issue a written apology for the film he directed. And Stone herself has since apologized for her participation in the project. That same year, Rooney Mara.
Like, you do realize how this has been going on forever, right? Like, hold on. This one's so ridiculous. Both because the movie is absolute shit, but... Jake Gyllenhaal and Disney present The Prince of Persia. Like, come on. Okay.
Clean up your room.
All right. There you go. Not to mention, every single movie ever where white characters replace other characters, like everyone was completely fine with that in fictional worlds. Ghost in the Shell, you know, the stuff of that nature. I remember there was even arguments being put forth by huge directors when Ghost in the Shell came out that were like, at the end of the day, do you think like we would be able to sell a high budget Hollywood film with a non Scarlett Joe, Asian actors? Like, is that even possible? Like, would be able to do this? You know, this kind of shit. Didn't he try to DM? He is already. Oh yeah, I've got a copyright strike from Matt Walsh right now, which he hasn't dropped. This one's serious too. I'm worried that he might push it all the way to a lawsuit. But I'm so in the realm of fair use for this thing. I just don't have Matt Walsh money to just go up. Like he could beat me in a lawsuit just by dragging something out for fucking like 10 years. But it's 100% within fair use. I'm doing criticism and commentary over what is a woman. And he's just such a fucking baby snowflake that he's trying to shut down people who rip into his thing. And by the way, also a liar, because he was putting out all this shit where he's like, no leftists or anyone on the left wants to review my film. They're actually terrified of it. That's why all these like big Hollywood critics are refusing to review it. And like, yeah, the majority of Hollywood critics who he was mailing it to were like, go fuck yourself. Like, we're not going to fucking be part of your transphobic propaganda. But I right away was like, hey, you know, prominent lefty, I will review your shitty film. No problem.
Clean up your room.
My way, and didn't get a response.
Had to grovel and beg for forgiveness after starring as Tiger Lily in a Peter Pan adaptation. The left declared that the fictional character is supposed to be Native American. Rooney Mara is not. And she agreed. And now she says that she's haunted by guilt because of portraying that character in the film. The outrage extends into the cartoon realm as well, where last year, Hank Azaria famously apologized and announced that he was stepping away from his role as Apu in The Simpsons on the basis that he shouldn't be voicing a character of Indian descent. In fact, the show's producers have since said that no white voice actors will be used for any characters from other ethnic backgrounds from now on. The determination to root out all cases of whitewashing, quote unquote, or suspected whitewashing or potential whitewashing is so absolute that the live-action remake of Aladdin in 2019 came under fire because the brown actress who played Jasmine was not brown enough. And she wasn't white, but she appeared to be kind of white adjacent, and that was very disturbing. A Screen Rant article at the time said that Aladdin's whitewashing had damaged its box office potential. The writer apparently convinced that the average moviegoer shares her race-obsessed neurosis.
Clean up your room.
Now, it may then come as a surprise, to the most naive among us anyway, that the very same media which complains bitterly about whites in traditionally non-white roles, and the very same leftists who treat the whitening of non-white characters as literal genocide, and all the people who've taken this issue so seriously as to cause many white Hollywood actors to drop out of films and fall to their knees in apology, would all this week be so excited about the release of the first trailer for Disney's upcoming Little Mermaid?
So, let's unpack a lot of this, because this is a silly conversation that has serious connotations. First off, there has been historically a very large problem with different marginalized communities being played by white actors and being parodied by white actors. That is where you get things like, parodies of Asian stereotypes, parodies of indigenous stereotypes, and of course, the one that everyone knows is, of course, minstrel shows, blackface, all that kind of stuff. There's a long history of America reinforcing racist stereotypes or reinforcing negative stereotypes to marginalized communities through the use of white people portraying other groups. So we've come a long way. We hope we're in a different society now. We're trying to become a little better, be better people, that kind of stuff. And so we're starting to now have these conversations, difficult conversations to have, sure. But a movie like Prey, for example, just came out, super badass. You go check it out. It's a really good thing that they hired an all-indigenous cast to play all the indigenous roles. They also hired indigenous producers to be able to make sure the entire film is culturally sensitive, historically accurate, all that kind of stuff. That is handling things well. That is also giving jobs to a bunch of marginalized communities that have a really hard time in the industry climbing up, because it is a very white industry and it is a very male-dominated industry. That's just entertainment. Every facet of entertainment, doesn't matter what it is, okay? So these are just steps towards trying to make things better for everybody. And representation, yes, it can matter. Now, there are cases where there has been what you call ethnic swapping, and no one complained about it. Maybe they complained before it happened, but like Nick Fury seems to be a pretty good example where whenever everyone brings up Nick Fury, everyone's not furious about it, because again, these are fictional characters. And the fact that Nick Fury is white in the comics doesn't have anything to do with his character in the comics. Whereas something like Shaft, also a fictional character, the fact that he is black in the original movie, it would be weird to see Tom Hanks play Shaft, because Shaft and who the character is also pertains to the fact that he is a black, officer working in America, right? So that's clearly part of it. Let me show you another example. So in 1997, Cinderella, the live action movie, came out. And lo and behold, it featured a black actor. And it did not destroy the world. It was 97. There was an entire outrage ecosystem the same way there is now. So that's for sure. But all that being said, a fictional princess, in this case, living in a fictional world where the story of Cinderella, or the story of, all these characters, is not directly related to the fact that they happen to be a specifically white princess. Ariel's story, she's also a princess, by the way, Ariel's story and the story of the Little Mermaid is about, and apparently it's a gay allegory, which is also something I just found out, but the entire story is about a half fish, half human that falls in love with a prince on the land, and so she wants to become human to be able to be with him, and so she trades with this witch Ursula the ability to be human under the deal that she will lose her voice, and if she kisses him before a certain amount of time, she then becomes permanently human and they can live happily ever after. If she doesn't, then the whole thing's over. None of that has to do anything with her being a white mermaid. That's not part of the character. That's not important to the story. The story could be told and have any other actor of any ethnicity play Ariel, and that wouldn't matter to that story, to be able to tell this story as it is, right? What was that about being a gay allegory? That's let's pull that one up. How the Little Mermaid was actually an allegory for being queer. It's a proven fact that most Disney films are pretty gay. Although the overtly gay characters, the Fool from the live-action Beauty and the Beast, movies like Mulan have challenged gender binaries, and movies like Frozen have drawn parallels to the queer experience, but Disney's foray into queer stories began a long time ago, before Frozen, before Mulan. The Little Mermaid film that came out in 1989 is based on Hans Christian Andersen's story, The Little Mermaid, written in 1836. That's pretty obvious. But did you know that the short story was based on romantic letters that Andersen exchanged with the handsome young Duke, Edward Cullen? What? Unable to express his homosexual feelings of love towards young Cullen, Andersen used the story as an allegory for his experience. Ariel's love for the human world parallels Andersen's love for other men. Ariel's afraid to admit that she loves the human world, but her father believes it's shameful, and her friend Sebastian thinks that he can learn to love the sea if she just tries harder. Sound familiar? Like many teenagers, Ariel hopes that she will grow out of her shameful obsession when she gets older. That is until she meets Eric. Eric may have loved Ariel, but he was engaged to his own kind, a human woman. In the letters, Andersen lamented that Collins was engaged to a woman because marrying a woman was a proper thing to do. As much as he wished that Collins wouldn't marry the woman, Colin and Andersen's story didn't end happily ever after, as Ariel and Eric's. Colin married a woman, and Andersen suffered a heartbreak. Ariel is literally silenced. In the 1830s, queer people could speak out if they wanted to be shamed, arrested, or even put to death. Unable to speak freely, they resorted to covert letters, coded messages, it seems, and allegory fairy tales. There is a saying that says, "Those who scream the loudest have the most to hide." In this case, the most vehemently homophobic people are the ones who are terrified of their own homosexual desires. Ursula's relentless opposition to Ariel is based in her own resentment towards herself. Ariel is taking a risk, actually, by pursuing the illicit desires she wants, whereas Ursula has often tried to ignore her own desires. In the first draft of The Little Mermaid, Ursula was Triton's sister until her own love for the human world drove them apart. In the film, Ursula was based on the drag queen named Divine. When Ariel finally overcomes everything to marry Eric, her father paints a rainbow in the sky. This could symbolize peace, as in the peace that Christian God made with the people after Noah's flood, but The Little Mermaid came out in 1989, and the rainbow became a prominent symbol of gay rights movement in the 1970s. Disney animators knew exactly what this stood for. This one is a bit of a reach, I'm going to be honest, but could be true. I would prefer to know if there was a Disney animator who later came out in life and was like, oh yeah, we did that. Because I only knew about the other secrets. I knew about the penis because I was one of the people who had the original VHS cassette, the taboo one that they don't sell anymore. It doesn't exist anymore. Well, they don't even sell VHS cassettes anymore. But that video, 100%, like I had to go home because I found out about it on the internet. I didn't find this out as a kid, okay? But I had it as a child. When I found out on the internet, I was like, what? And so when I went back to my parents' place, who still have the original VHS cassette, put it in there. The cover of it definitely has the cock, definitely has the penis on the cover of the cassette. But yes, in that scene, before it was edited out, the priest gets a boner. 100%. You can see it as clear as day. And I was like, oh my God, it's real. It's real. It's like, I've seen it. I can contend. It is real. You see it as clear as day. 100%. So I saw the penis. Ashman, who's the lyricist for both Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid, was an openly gay man who died of AIDS right after finishing Beauty and the Beast in 1991. Ashman considered Beauty and the Beast to be his personal story, shunned from society, his body hideously transformed, and his life wilting away like an enchanted rose. The Beast is a figure of degenerative disease. Belle's love and ultimate breaking the curse of the family are a fantasy cure that Ashman was denied. Wow. Okay, I didn't know that part. Yes, I have the cock cut. I do indeed have the cock cut. Lance, I give praise 7 out of 10, of course, because they still acknowledge that the Two-Spirit people from a nations when at the time they made the rep and when there was lots of us. You didn't like Prey? Oh man, I love that movie.
Made live action copy and paste job. Now everything is mostly the same in the remake as always. It's like shot for shot, exactly the same, except that the Little Mermaid herself, a pale.
I'm in London entirely at my personal expense to pay respects to Her Late Majesty the Queen at the line in the state and a half of Alberta. There's no 14-hour queue. Why are we so cucked to the monarchy? I don't understand it. Fucking. Oh my God. I mean, at least that's not as bad as the fucking people waiting almost over 24 hours in Britain. Like, over a day in a line to see a box. Like, oh my God. It's wild. It was 24 hours earlier, Lance. 24 hours, people have no respect for themselves to see a fucking box. To see a box. Like, what? To pay tribute? Like, I love the way Cavernacle worded it. He's like, if you support the monarchy, you're a racist. Just full stop. Like, just that sentence. If you support the monarchy in any way, shape, or form, you're just a racist. That's all there is to it.
Pale redhead in the cartoon version has been recast as a black woman, though still with red hair somehow. This is part of a growing trend. As the anger about whitewashing increases, so in equal proportion does the demand for what we must in the reverse call blackwashing. A viral post on Twitter declares rapturously, a black Cinderella, a black Belle on...
Do you know different things are different, Matt? Did you know there's a difference between the white experience and the black experience in America? That these things, there's a different history, black minstrel shows, the othering of black people, like, yes, that these things are not always going to be a one-size-fits-all. If you want a rule, since I guess we've gotten to a point now where this Little Mermaid trailer just broke the right's brains. Like, I didn't think it was gonna melt them all down, but holy shit! And now they're all screaming triumph, triumph! Look at the downvotes. One of the most the most downvoted actually trailer in Disney history. We did it, fellow racists. We destroyed the ability for anyone to have a black mermaid. Like, it's unreal. I can't believe it, but. Here's the rule. If the ethnicity of a person or character, and this especially applies to historical characters, it would be weird. I would not want to see a black John Brown. That would make no sense unless it's supposed to be like some reverse thing, like reverse ethnic thing where all the history is completely reversed, like a race swap kind of a movie or something like that. But no, a black John Brown would not make sense because the fact that John Brown was white plays into his abolitionist history as a figure for that movement. So that would be weird. So for a historical figure, it's especially important, but the same rule applies to both historical figures and comic books. If the ethnicity or race is something that is important or integral to that character and who that character is, then yes, it does not make sense to do these swaps. It does not make sense to keep flipping them. But if it doesn't, then who the fuck cares? Grow the fuck up, you weird nerds. That's all I can say. Like, fucking get over this. Like, you're like, this movie, by the way, The Little Mermaid, the new live action one, like every other live action movie, probably gonna be fucking hot garbage. Probably gonna be an absolute disaster of a film. They all are. They're just fucking soulless cash grabs. And I've also seen this pushback that's like, well, is this not just fucking corporations making corporate decisions in order to generate outrage? Well, if that was what you believed, you're doing it. All of you are. Geeks and Gamers, Quartering, Matt Walsh, all of them melting down over this and making way more noise and downvoting and being like, we have done it, fellow racists. We've downvoted the fucking trailer down. We did it. Another victory for the white race or whatever. Like, Ariel, not white enough. Like, you're doing the thing that you are accusing Disney of intentionally doing. Like, if you think they're just going woke, and if you go woke, you will go broke. I'm sorry, you're the ones doing that. This is your ecosystem, you know?
Broadway, a black Cinderella on Broadway, and now a black Ariel. The black girls are truly winning. Much to the left's approval, the black girls are winning, quote unquote, in historical retellings too.
Okay, by the way, did you not see those? Like, there is some pretty wholesome, like, the only thing that's coming out of this that, like, because again, I don't watch the live action Disney remakes. I think, again, they're just all garbage. But the fact that there are, and I've seen a lot of black people on Twitter and black mums making posts where it's like, it was really important for me to be able to show that Cinderella version to my daughter, to let her know that yes, black girls can be princesses too. And if that is the one good thing to come from this, that is the only part of this whole fiasco that I think is a good thing, is that kind of representation where they're like, oh, okay, yes, mermaids can be black. Okay, fine. You know, not all mermaids have to be white. Not all fantasy creatures, not all elves have to be white. They can be black as well. Not all highborn lord houses in Lord of the Rings have to be white. They can be black as well. It's like, after the initial kind of like, okay, so this is a black elf. There was not black elves in the original trilogy. After that, it's like, you stop noticing it immediately in that show. In the new House of the Dragon, which is surprisingly good, although kind of yikesy again with the incest in that last episode. Come on. Anyways, but with the House of the Dragon, you stop noticing it. Like, it's immediately like, oh yeah, these are just characters in a fantasy and they're good actors and they're doing a good job, you know? Like, grow up, you weirdos.
Last year, a black woman was cast as Anne Boleyn, the 16th century Queen of England, in an upcoming miniseries. Netflix currently features a show starring a black woman as a Viking warrior. Many other examples come to mind, too many to count.
Krista, thank you for the tier 1.
Tier 1 subscription.
Spoilers, it's Game of Thrones. Come, you know there's gonna be incest. There's always incest. I haven't told you what incest or how it incested, but it's fucking Game of Thrones. That's like, it's part of the brand, all right? It's fucking dragons and incest. That's what the whole show is. It always has been, always will be.
They even fired Jake from State Farm and replaced him with a black version. And then there are the examples yet to be. For instance, there's still a major push to find.
It was great for the movement forward. It did do it, but it was a long way to go. In fact, the ending of the facts of them trying to pull out the actual way of life, or the whiteness idea, or how we natives should live in the way whiteness says we should. Okay, interesting.
Find somebody other than a white man to fill James Bond's shoes in the next installment. Now, in all of these cases, two things are guaranteed. Or actually more than two, a few things. When a black actor plays a traditionally white role, portraying either a fictional character or a historical figure, the media, the left, and Hollywood itself will celebrate the move as pioneering and courageous and important, along with all the other requisite superlatives.
I don't know. When Netflix did that whole, like, we're going to have a half people of color cast historical show, or was that a historical show? I never ended up watching it, but I don't remember seeing anything in the media being like, this is so unbelievably brave. I could be wrong on that one.
The other guarantee is that any criticism of the casting decision, even and especially criticism that simply adopts the same logic as the left applies to so-called whitewashing, will be slammed as racist. The Daily Beast today has an article documenting what it calls the racist backlash to the Black Little Mermaid, declaring this backlash to be out of control. The racism is out of control, they say. Then you click on the article, and in the article they provide a few tweets from random accounts complaining that the underwater scenes don't look realistic. So the Daily Beast article about racist backlash contains no racist backlash, or even backlash that vaguely mentions race. They simply determined that the criticism of the film's bad CGI is really racially motivated. It's a dog whistle.
Okay, let's look at what the thumbnails are. Let's see how they do these. Let's check these out. So this one, Rings of Power, savaged. The race card fails. Literally holding up a race card there. Instant regret. The Little Mermaid trailer hits 1.2, and you've actually made parts of her face white. So yeah, pretty sure there's quite a bit of racism on display. The wokest backfire in history. Disney demolishes. Fucking ha ha ha. Is that all the quartering ones? Let's check out Geeks and Gamers. It's likely also upset. I love that they did this. Top Gun Maverick passes Black Panther at worldwide domestic. Why those two films? Why are you comparing those two movies specifically? Is there not something going on there? Because that's not the highest grossing film of all time. It's not. There's a lot of other highest grossing films of all time. Why are you pitting specifically the Black Panther against Top Gun? Like, that's so yikesy. Legendary backfire. Disney getting destroyed for going woke. 1 million dislikes. Disney facing historic backlash. By the way, why in these two thumbnails did you make her darker in this one? Look at this in 4K. Look at the two thumbnails side by side. You can see this as clear as day. They're not hiding this shit, Matt. Like, everyone is being so fucking clear about this. This is like the OJ treatment, what they did on Time magazine. Like, this is fucking hella yikes. Hella, like, they're calling these people racists because they're racists. That's why. And that, like, it's the same thing with Gamergate. After Gamergate, there were so many people who were trying to do this whole kind of like, oh, no. This is not about sexism. This is not about that. This is about ethics and journalism. We just really care about ethics and journalism. That's what this is about, okay? We're not misogynists. This had nothing to do with misogyny, okay? This is just, we want ethics and journalism. That's what we care about. Exact same thing here. It's like, no. This is not about racism. We're not racists. It's not. We don't get fucking huge fucking big mad soil our diapers whenever there's a fucking, non-white character played by a non-white actor. It has nothing to do with racism. It's because we want good stories. We want good stories, and we just care, and we don't want studios giving us forced diversity. We don't want forced diversity. Well, first I would ask, why don't you want forced diversity? I'm just curious. Like, what about that is yucky to you? Why that is it? The forced part is that it? You will just be accepting of diversity on your own terms. Is that it? But you seem to get really mad for very specific things. Very specific things. You know, it's like. And sure, oh wow, you can see them, you can see it's so clear here. Look at this. Look at the difference between these two thumbnails.
That's the third guarantee, that when a film casts a black actor in a white role, any criticism of the film, any criticism, even criticism that makes no mention of race, is racist. Which is why you can't criticize the new Lord of the Rings series or the Game of Thrones.
New Lion King, almost an exclusively very, very black cast. A lot of black actors playing a lot of roles. Not a lot of white people in the cast of The Lion King, voicing the characters. Absolute and complete dog shit movie. Absolute, again, another soulless cash grab, pointless, exists solely to generate money. Jon Favreau, making the most ridiculous decisions. I want it to be hyper realistic, but at the same time, I also want it to be like the old cartoon and hearkening to everything that everyone loved, but also they must have no emotion because they're real animals, so they're going to speak and talk, which will look really weird and be off-putting and be actually kind of horrifying, like Uncanny Valley, but fucking for animals. But like at the same time, it could be fun, and it'll have all the songs you like. Well, not all of them. We're gonna edit out the Nazi song because gonna be like, no, fucking garbage movie. There, easy. I didn't have to bring up anything about the people voicing the characters. In the old cartoons, it really seems like they were fine with, Jeremy Irons being in the role of Scar. What happened there? Huh? Was he not good enough? Was he not good enough to do this? Did they have to change that up? What's going on here?
Prequel, without revealing yourself.
There's a Nazi song in The Lion King? Are you serious? They'd goose step. I think they should leave it in. It's like it's with purpose, by the way. It's like it's in here to show the authoritarianism of the monarchy, and then they combine it with like Nazi iconography. Yeah, like they're goose stepping. This song slaps. This scene slaps. This movie slaps. I fucking like every one of you. I adored The Lion King. I think it's an absolute fucking amazing film. And yes, I am aware of the more problematic parts of it and whatever, but still, yeah.
To be a member of the KKK. In such situations, the left also likes to employ its favorite sleight of hand trick that we talk about all the time on this show. This is something that they will surely use in response to this very monologue you're listening to right now, when Media Matters clips it and posts it to Twitter with a caption like, Daily Wire host launches into racist tirade about Black Little Mermaid. Guaranteed they're going to do that. And when they do, the left is going to respond to it by scoffing and saying, well, why do you care so much? It's just a movie about a mermaid. It's just a mini-series about the Queen of England. It's just a show about a Viking. It's just entertainment. Why are you even talking about this? Aren't there more important issues? But of course, they themselves have made exceedingly clear that racial accuracy in entertainment, whether fictional or historical, is extremely important to them. They've been saying this for years. That's why they go into spasms of rage whenever a character is judged not black or brown enough. It's why they would literally riot and start.
Okay, it's The only point I will give him, it would be kind of weird if someone happens to be, say, like Persian and then played a Persian character, and then other people were like, oh, I don't think they were Persian enough. Like, yeah, that seems like a nothing burger. I don't really think that's happening. I don't think that's a huge problem. But for the most part, yeah. Representation is good. It is good to have, you know, children's stories, children's heroes, children's superheroes and stuff like that they can look up to that aren't all white, that aren't all men. That's a good thing. That's a nice thing to have. It's neat. But if you want a rule, if you want a broadly applicable rule to this problem, which seems to really be breaking a whole bunch of the right-wing brains, again, if the race or ethnicity is a part of that character's story or integral to that character and who that character is, then yes, it will be weird if they are played by someone of a different race. That wouldn't really make sense. For a made-up fictional character that doesn't even exist, like they're not real things, mermaids aren't real, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter at all. And also, because there's way less representation of people of color, black people, indigenous people, Asian people in film, cinema, and stuff, especially in mainstream film, cinema, and stuff, it does have a different connotation when a black character is suddenly replaced with a white person, even if it follows those rules, than with a white person suddenly if it goes in the opposite direction. Not that, like, it should be something for people to always freak out about or whatever, but there you go. There's the set list of rules. You could do a whole thing about this. You see Brent? Brent has a video about this. I fucking love Brent. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Killing people if somebody rebooted Tyler Perry's Medea series, except with Bob Odenkirk dressed in drag for the title role. A similar reaction would be expected if the live-action remake of The Princess and the Frog featured, like, Kristen Stewart as Tatiana. And of course, a biopic about, say, Frederick Douglass with Tom Hanks as the lead would result in entire cities burning down in flames. All of these things would be called, as less egregious examples have been called, black erasure. So does that not mean, by their own categorization, that the reverse is white erasure? And if they can complain about black erasure, then why can't we complain about white erasure? Any kind of erasure on racial grounds sounds bad to me. Well, no, they say. It's different in the reverse. It's just different. It always is, right?
No, I explained it.
And that's why all of this matters. Now, on its own, in a vacuum, the race of an actor portraying a fictional character or even a historical character doesn't matter. Makes no difference, right? That's exactly the point that many of us have insisted on for years when the left started making this an issue. For years, we said, it's not an issue, who cares? And there was a time
the left started making
when that was the case. It wasn't an issue. Nobody really cared about it. Morgan Freeman's character in Shawshank Redemption is actually...
No, it's the right that have turned this into an entire fucking ecosystem. It's the right who fucking manufacture the outrage around this. You're doing the bidding. You're cucked by the corporations. I'm sorry, you snowflakes. You're doing exactly what they want. You're saying that they're just doing this not because they actually care about hiring people who are talented for the roles, but they're just doing it to drum up outrage so they can get the clicks and the ticket sales. Well, then you're the ones providing that service. If no one was providing that service, then your argument wouldn't even exist. You are, again, the villains in your own story. You're the boot. You're the boot that you feel oppressed by. You're you're holding the boot to your face. You know, it's a problem of your own design. And by the way, this is what Matt Walsh thinks a person born in Bethlehem or modern day Palestine looks like. Totally fine with this. Yeah. Oh, that's just Jesus, right? That's just what Jesus looks like. Hi, Jesus. Good to see you, Jesus. Yeah. This looks like a Swedish hockey player. Okay? No hating on Jesus, but I'm just saying, I don't think this is what Jesus would have looked like.
Supposed to be an Irish guy with red hair. That's why the character is named Red. But nobody complained because Freeman was brilliant in the role. He single-handedly made that film the classic that it is. And also, back in the early 90s, people weren't obsessing as much about the racial dynamics in Hollywood films. There was nothing pointed or political about giving the role to Freeman. Contrary to now, when the diversification, quote-unquote...
By the way, traditionalists, another reason this is breaking all their brains and they can't wrap their head around this is a lot of them are still stuck in that old, like, life was better back in the day. Like, that's what conservatism is, right? You want to return to tradition. You want to return to the old ways of life. And so the same arguments, like, yeah, people are considering these things now. Yes, these massive corporations, fucking terrible corporations, by the way, like Disney, they have huge panels, study, focus groups, all that kind of stuff. They're reading the writing on the wall, trying to learn more. What is culturally sensitive? What is racially sensitive? What is going to be like? They are spending money on that. Oh yes, you best believe. The Overton window has shifted on a handful of stuff, and so they're trying to catch up. That's why they do these things. Disney doesn't have a deep-seated love for LGBTQ people by virtue of the company itself. It's just following the trends at the time, what sells well. People don't want to see movies that are just straight cis white males all the time. Some people actually will spend tons of money to see a woman Jedi. Turns out they will spend a lot of fucking money to see a woman Jedi. So yeah, maybe they're just following that instead of everything else. But you wouldn't apply these same rules to like, hey, by the way, it's unusual that nowadays, apparently, you aren't allowed to sexually assault your wife legally. Back in the day, you used to be able to do that. You were legally allowed to do that. And now, the left have lost their minds and saying like, well, no, even if you were in a marriage with a woman, you shouldn't be allowed to sexually assault her. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, like, it's weird how the times have changed. It's as if everyone has lost their minds, you know? I just can't wrap my head around it.
Of a story is always very clearly pointed and political.
Oh, thanks, Lost. I'll check
Back then, he was just the best man for the job. Everyone loves his character now, and that's all that needs to be said. Many of us have clung to that attitude today, which, again, in a vacuum makes sense. But we're not in a vacuum. Unfortunately, we live now in a culture governed by blatant racial double.
Real historians got together and said this with Jesus. Oh, I love this photo. This is the photo I always show people when I'm like, yeah, if Jesus was historically accurate, this is apparently what he would look like. I should pull back up white Jesus again and put them side by side. Let's put white Jesus next to historic Jesus. Yep.
The rightness or wrongness of an act, the seriousness or unseriousness of an issue, the legitimacy or illegitimacy of a complaint, even the mutability or immutability of a cartoon character's race are all judged on racial grounds. Based on skin color, we are told what our opinions are allowed to be and what sorts of things we are allowed to care about. And if you're white, then there's going to be a whole list of things that every other group of people can care about, but which you would be insane, stupid, petty, and racist to care about yourself. Entire lists of priorities which, due to your skin pigmentation, are off limits for you. You are not allowed to care about it, they say. We're supposed to just accept a rule which says, you know, having a white actor play Black Panther is horribly racist, but it's also horribly racist to complain about a black actor playing The Little Mermaid.
I am pretty happy about how this broke all their brains. It's pretty amazing. All right, let's see.
So let me get this straight. I just seen on Fox News that they want to make The Little Mermaid black. Well, what on flat Earth is going on, huh? Walt Disney would be rolling over in his grave if they hadn't have frozen his ass. They're going to have to rename all them dwarfs, because not only am I grumpy, I'm downright mad. I'm livid. I'm irate, irked, miffed. I'm pissed off. Because you just can't go changing the stuff we made up. These myths are sacred. We gave you that singing crab. He's black, but they're not going to stop with the crustaceans, are they? No. What's next, huh? It's not going to end there. What are they going to make Winnie the Pooh put on pants before he catches allegations? Are they going to make Wally switch over from a Mac to a PC? Are they going to make Goofy stop owning Pluto because owning people is wrong? You know, the way they sexualize children nowadays, I wouldn't be surprised if they let Quentin Tarantino remake Cinderella on account of the foot fetish he's got. Just you watch. And what's my white daughter gonna think watching all this, huh? She'll be sitting there thinking, I guess I'll never grow up to be a mermaid because I'm not black. That's not what I want for my daughter. I don't want her growing up in a world thinking she can't lure sailors into rocks just because the color of her skin. You people never think about representation, do you? No, we don't.
Oh, so
you
good.
don't. You don't. So today I'm raising my emotional support beer to Disney. Because you're going to need it after this boycott. I already boycotted your ass once, but I'm re-boycotting your...
Who's this guy? Brent Terhune. I've reached out before. I never got a response. I'm actually bigger than Brent. Not for long. He'll surpass me real fast. He's way too talented. But I reached out on the Twitters. I think, yeah, he doesn't follow me back, and I never got a response. So he's already big timing me before he's truly big time. It's terrible.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Jenna Tao, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.